Guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Krista Reuther, and she's an entrepreneur. She's going to talk to us about real estate. She is a landlord educator plus a rental industry researcher. We're going to talk all about kind of I know landlord gets a bad rap, but we'll talk about um information to help the audience streamline their investment property management. And she's analyzed tons of data from landlords and tenants, and she's also got a monthly webinar series. So I'm gonna ask her about that, and I'm really happy to have her on the show. So Krista, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I really love you're kind of one of the first guests to actually talk in this area. So start off by talking about what you do, how you got there, and how the audience can benefit from today's fireside conversation.
Absolutely. Well, my story starts all the way back in 2013. I was a freelance editor just trying to earn enough money so I didn't have to eat ramen noodles every day of college. That meant that I had the opportunity to edit research from all over the world, including different kind of business proposals. And one that really caught my eye was for a luxury hotel in Jerusalem. Someone sent it over to me. They said, "Hey, take a look at this. They're putting it together so that they can go to their investors and make a case that this luxury hotel needed to exist." And I had never seen so many zeros and commas in my life. And I just was really taken aback and thinking, wow, okay, I'm scrounging for ramen noodle money, but commercial real estate is a really popular niche. People are going to be making so much money here. And so as I continued on in my career, real estate would come up here and there. And eventually I landed in the CE Shop, which is a company that covers real estate agent education. So I got to really familiarize myself with the real estate industry as a whole and hone in on how we are teaching people to sell real estate. Then an opportunity popped up for me to jump over to TurboTenant, which is an all-in-one property management solution designed by landlords for landlords. So I've really honed my niche in the residential rental market. Now I get to deep dive into topics for my landlord audience to help educate them and make sure that their businesses are taking off while they are being great landlords to their tenants, because at the heart of everything is the landlord-tenant relationship. So that's what I based most of my research around.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm going to ask you about TurboTenant. It sounds like I'm always interested in individuals in the creative, the media, the software, how they incorporate this in the industry. So I love that. The first question I have for you is what is TurboTenant? Looks like it's a rental property management software. What can it do? What can it do for me or for us or just all investors?
All the above. We pride ourselves on offering support for every step of the landlord journey, whether you are marketing your vacancy, trying to find tenants, really important, screening tenants and knowing who's moving in so you feel really confident that they're going to pay rent, collecting rent payments, managing maintenance. We are there to help with every single aspect of a landlord's journey. And we've been doing this since 2015. We started out with just rental applications, but it's really grown. So we have support for every part of what you might be doing as a housing provider. And we have served over 650,000 landlords, which is really exciting.
Yeah, so kind of from an investment standpoint, I've got for the properties that I feel comfortable with, I usually give it over to I kind of let it run on autopilot and a property manager, and then the ones that need a little bit more work, I keep a close eye on those, and I kind of self-manage those because like I said, those are my investments. So kind of one of the big problems with rentals is with one is tenants. So it sounds like you do the screening and all of that. What happens if a tenant makes it through and you decide you don't want to rent to them? Are you going to get penalized for discrimination, or just kind of talk about that process?
Absolutely. So when it comes to tenant screening, a best practice is to make sure that you have established criteria before you even start accepting applications. I have hosted a webinar on that in the past, but inherently you want to boil it down. And I would say for extra credit, write it down. Make sure you're saying I'm looking for applicants who have a credit score of 600 or above. I need them to make 2 to 3 times the monthly rent in their income, XYZ. That way you have something to fall back on if there is ever a case where someone files a discrimination claim against you. You can say, no, this is my process. I treat everyone through this process. This is what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, to help support this whole effort, we know that it can be really exhausting to try and find tenants, or at least it used to be. But now what we do, beyond helping you generate a really captivating listing description with our AI generated description tool, we have pre-screening questionnaires that you can automatically set up so that when someone is interested in your property, it asks them some baseline questions and you can tell at a glance if they're going to be a good fit or not. So things like their credit report, or excuse me, their credit score, their monthly income, if they have pets, if they smoke, some of those key points that oftentimes help landlords determine if they're going to move forward with an applicant before anybody has to spend any money, because it's free to use TurboTenant. We also have a paid service if you want to jump in there, but it's free to use, and tenants are actually the ones who pay to submit their applications and tenant screening. So let's say they go through the pre-screener, you're excited about this potential lead, you invite them to apply, they apply, you pull their credit history in less than 5 minutes, and you go through and you see top level, it's not looking like they actually qualify for your rental. Maybe there are a couple things that stick out about their eviction history, or how many lines of credit they have open, or their amount of debt. At that point, we make it super simple. You can just press a button and say that you're not moving forward with this candidate, and we will actually send the adverse action letter on your behalf. That adverse action letter is a legal notice that all people are required to provide when a credit report is pulled. That way, it informs the tenant of their right to go to the credit bureaus and contest any information that's incorrect, or otherwise follow up on anything that's bothering them with their tenant screening report. So we take that off of your plate and make sure that you're legally compliant. That way you face fewer discrimination claims because you're following a very set process.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. Next question I have for you is what kind of turnover? So how do you handle the turnover, like the cleaning and all of that? Or is that or are you just helping to get more leads, and then kind of do you help with any sort of like maintenance, repair, turnover, cleaning, any of those, like getting locked out, water shut off, these kind of really irritating problems?
Great question. So from a free plan perspective, we do have maintenance management insofar as your tenant can go through and they can submit maintenance requests to you for free. They can attach pictures, videos, details about what's going on, and then send it over to you. You can either choose to take action yourself or forward that over to your favorite contractor. So treating it as a work order to help streamline that communication. We also partner with Lula. Lula is a company that provides vetted pros to go out and take care of maintenance issues without even bothering the housing provider. They're available in many markets. We're always looking to expand. And that's a pretty cool service because they actually work with the tenant and try and provide some troubleshooting over text before they even go out. So let's say that your tenant reaches out and they're like, hey, Lula, the light bulb in my kitchen, it just will not turn on. I keep flicking the switch. I tried changing it. Nothing's working. Lula's going to say, okay, let's check the breaker box. Have you tried flipping it off and flipping it back on? Tenant will say, oh, I didn't think of that. Okay, let me go over and try that. They try it. It works. Great news. You're not getting charged for that text advice, and you saved yourself a trip out because there is a fee attached to a trip with a technician actually coming out to investigate what's going on. So they will try and work with your tenant. If they can't figure it out over text, then they will actually schedule directly with your tenant. So that way, again, you are removed from the more mundane part of this back and forth, but you still get updates along the way and very comprehensive notes about what they did, what was wrong, pictures of the before and after. So that is certainly something that we help with if you opt into Lula. In terms of some of the other kind of more nebulous stuff like the checkout process, or the turnover process, I should say, we do have free condition reports, which you can customize for each property. Inherently, you go through, you say, all right, in the living room, I want to make sure that I check the walls, the hardwood floor, the outlets. You set all of that up. You go through, both you and the tenant can make notes about the condition of everything. You have that digital record saved. That way, if you do have to deduct from their security deposit, you can point to it and say, well, look at this picture of the burn holes on my hardwood floor. That's why I had to deduct $1,000 from your deposit because we needed to replace the entire floor. So really trying to help streamline that process and make sure that good communication is at the forefront for both landlords and tenants.
And the follow-up question is, how does the TurboTenant differ from Airbnb? I'm just like, it sounds like, because I have Airbnb rentals, but I think a lot, a few of those properties could probably be better managed with like a long-term solution. So, well, how are you different?
So TurboTenant is more focused on long-term rental. You kind of nailed it in your question. We have state-specific lease agreements that are really geared toward 12 months or longer, although they can certainly be adapted for shorter lease lengths as you need to. I would also say the majority of the marketing sites that we put listings on are also geared toward long-term rentals, whereas Airbnb is obviously short-term, so 3 months or fewer is what we see on average people going after on those sites. So just playing in a little bit of a different ballpark.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And what is and then so you collect and then how does TurboTenant fit in with a property manager? Do you kind of facilitate that, or is that up to the landlord? Describe the process of where that fits in, a property manager and TurboTenant.
So really at the end of the day, we are trying to help landlords keep more of their revenue and help them self-manage their rentals. There's nothing wrong with property managers, right? They are an important part of the ecosystem, but they also cost on average 10% of your monthly revenue. So if you want to keep that in your back pocket, you can. We've provided a suite of tools to make it as easy as possible. So whether you have less than a year of experience as a landlord or you've been doing it for 20 years, we have something in our arsenal to make it even easier for you to conduct business on a day-to-day basis without feeling like you're getting mired down by all of the work.
Yeah. What does it cost? What is the cost involved? Like, how does TurboTenant make its revenue? Is it kind of like because like Airbnb takes 3%, and yeah, I know if you go through like traditional brokers, they take 1 month's 1 month's rent. How do you make your fees? How do you stay afloat?
It's brilliant, honestly. I know I'm a little bit biased because I work here, but we were built by landlords for landlords. So our CEO is a landlord, most of our product team are landlords. And with that in mind, we wanted to make it really simple for business owners to jump in no matter what their budget was. So we offer a completely free plan where you can utilize most of our tools. For example, tenant screening, rent collection, maintenance management. You can hop in there and you don't have to pay anything as a landlord. When it comes to tenant screening, the tenant actually pays for that application. So again, you can opt in actually and decide to pay for them if you're feeling very generous. But that is one way that money is coming into TurboTenant as part of the processing fee for the application report. Also, when we enable rent payments, the tenants pay a small fee in order to pay rent, depending on which method they're using. So you can pay with a credit card, a debit card, ACH, and depending on what method, they'll be charged a nominal fee that helps to cover expenses and continue growing the TurboTenant empire, I will say. And lastly, we also offer great partnerships with companies like Easy Evict, which helps with the eviction process, Steadily, which is landlord insurance, people that we know are going to provide high quality offerings to our landlords. And we work out a mutually beneficial deal where TurboTenant gets a little bit of money for that. And they, in turn, unlock these great services that they need, whether that's landlord insurance, legal advice, LLC formation advice, etc.
Yeah. And on the landlord side, do you take, like, for example, once the tenant makes the payment and the landlord receives it and deposits it, do you take a cut off of that, or is it, or because what's to say, I get a tenant from your place and then I just have them pay me so I can save on fees. What is your approach?
Yes, we do not charge the landlord any additional fees. We don't take a cut of that revenue. Really, it's being covered by the convenience fees from the tenant side of things.
Yeah.
Also, people can opt into our premium subscription, which is one annual fee. It covers you no matter how many doors you have. And so that's another way that we make money, but that's completely optional. There's still an entire free suite of services and they never expire. It's not a free trial. You can hop in, try it, and pay $0, which fits into everyone's budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite yeah, very interesting. The okay, and then so that's really interesting. I might check it out. And because it's actually it would be better than going through a real estate broker, which kind of the fees are exorbitant.
Yeah.
But then they've got this like national lawsuit against that basically broker salaries are cut in half now. Moving on, because I'm interested, because you do a lot of education, right? And webinars were like I was doing webinars during COVID and it was awesome. I was getting all this like business. And then after COVID, everybody went back to work and kind of I've been doing live streams, but where does webinars fit in a marketing? Like what's the difference between live stream and webinars? Just kind of enlighten us. Why would you do a webinar versus a live stream?
So to me, they're fairly similar. The main differentiator is putting together a deck and kind of rehearsing a presentation for the webinar side of things. Whereas when I think of a live stream, I think of it more as being kind of a free-flowing conversation. We have some points to hit, but we're kind of letting it go wherever it's going to go. When I structure a webinar, I have it boiled down to a science. I'm looking for 28 to 30 slides. I know that I'm going to cover 45 minutes of educational content and then leave the last 15 minutes for a Q&A. And it's been working out really well. I love getting to deep dive on topics. I'm a naturally curious person. So I go to my audience and I say, what do you want to learn about? And then I take their top requests and I jump in. And I've also been able to secure a wealth of different professionals to come into the mix. So for example, next month in August, we will be hosting a webinar all about financing. So financing and refinancing rental properties. And I have a lender partner who's going to come in and give their take and some best practices and tips. So not only do I get to be really curious and learn a whole bunch of stuff by myself and then present it to the audience, but I can also bring in experts who will really enrich the experience and leave people with actionable tips so that they can take their business to the next level.
Yeah, it's interesting because the more I think about it, because webinars are kind of this way of like building it's almost like a space like Twitter Spaces or kind of like a clubhouse and or these, and then basically you can in live stream is just a medium to disseminate it to a broader audience, which is yeah, I've always I wanted to rebuild my webinar outreach a little bit more. I've been spent building this podcast. So if people wanted to find out more about you and if there was any things that I did not ask, I was just asking from the standpoint of me as a investor. But if there's other things about TurboTenant that you want the audience to know about, feel free to share and how they can contact you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, I'd love to share a little story. I promise it relates back, but I'll take you on the journey with me. Okay. So last week, I had a wonderful opportunity to hop on a podcast with a host who I didn't actually know was a TurboTenant user until we got on the call. And he was so excited and he was telling me all about how he uses our platform, which is always so wonderful to hear. But the thing that really stuck out to me, he said that he has a property manager, and that's not a typical use case where the landlord has a property manager, but they still use TurboTenant. Again, love to hear it. Use us all you want. But he told me that one of the big reasons that he uses us is because he's had this property manager for 6 years. And when she originally signed the contract with him, they were going to go find his first tenant. And he said, okay, how much does it cost? And she said, well, a month's worth of rent. Yeah. He said, all right, okay. And he starts Googling. He finds TurboTenant. He's really excited about us. He sees that we do tenant screening and all of this. So he says, all right, property manager, I have a deal for you. If I find the tenant, you waive the fee. If you find the tenant, I'll pay the fee. And she said, bet. He has never paid that fee in 6 years because he beats her every single time by finding qualified tenants through TurboTenant. So he has saved 6 months worth of rent over the course of 6 years because he's just been able to do it himself. Yeah. And that's really the kind of level of empowerment that we are looking to provide for our landlords and tenants. Yeah. So that gave me quite the giggle. Because again, it's an interesting use case, and I really love hearing people be able to keep more of their bottom line. TurboTenant or our educational programs, you can find us at turbotenant.com/education/webinars. It's
Yeah.
free to join our webinars. Like I said, they're an hour long, 45 minutes of educational topics, 45 minutes of education, 15 minutes of Q&A. I love bringing in expert guests, and it's a really interactive experience. We've had people who have come to like 20 to 30 of those webinars. So you're going to find people who have quite a lot of experience, both with our product and in the rental industry in general. So it's been a really great time, and I'm excited to continue doing it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I had the same approach. I haven't used a broker at all for since 1999, and
Yeah.
then it was harder and harder to find tenants. But so that's why I was using Airbnb. I'm happy to pay at 3%. On the 10% or more is just ridiculous. So, but it's really interesting. How in terms of profitability for TurboTenant, like how young is the company? Like, are you only active in certain areas? And tell us more about just kind of the growth.
Absolutely. So we were founded in 2015. We've been around for a hot minute. We're going to be around for a while more. Very excited about that. And we've only continued growing. One of my favorite parts of that growth is that we take landlord feedback and tenant feedback very seriously. So we actually have a system where landlords and tenants can submit feature requests, and then everyone else can vote on it in the community. We look at the most highly requested requests and try and add them to our product. And we've done a pretty good job of that. So some of our key features today were actually inspired by landlords and tenants coming to us and saying, hey, it'd be really nice if you had this. We're like, all right, let's get it in there then. And in terms of what comes next, we have so much in the fire, but all of it is really coming back to how can we make it easier to be a great landlord by design? And I'm really proud of the results that we've achieved and look forward to everything else that's going to shake out.
Yeah, that's so cool. I really love it. It kind of reminds me of Redfin and Zillow, just kind of these platforms that provide, it uses data analytics and kind of provides like actually real solutions to like real problems. I really enjoyed this conversation, and for the audience, be sure to give Krista's socials a like and follow. Check out Turbo Tenant. I'm going to do that as well. And thanks so much for coming on.